Hey everyone, today we are going to look at the Schmincke Aqua Granulation Spray. Now this is supposed to make watercolor that are not granulating granulate. So we'll see how effective this is. Made in Germany. This is flammable and should be disposed of when it's empty. So this is the spray and the plastic cap that protects the top. This is a small 15 ml glass bottle. And it's quite compact. You can put this probably in a pencil case. I'm going to use this on 3 colors that are not granulating and on 3 colors that are granulating. So let me just show you the paper I'm going to use today. On the left we have the Canson XL watercolor paper, and on the right side we have the Daler Rowney Aqua Fine watercolor paper. Both are supposed to be cold pressed, but with the Canson paper, this is actually more like fine grain compared to this. The cold press on the Daler Rowney, it has more texture. This is Canson. The paper surface is smoother compared to Daler Rowney, which you can see the texture is more obvious. They are student quality. There is no cotton content. For most of my color mixing videos and most of my YouTube tutorials that are not drawn on sketchbooks, I'm actually using this paper because the paper is very white. The colors, they appear really vibrant on this. But this paper is not that durable. Right, we will start with lemon yellow. This is from Daniel Smith, a really bright and cool yellow. So I'm going to spray half of this swatch here with the granulation spray and leave the other half as it is and see what would happen. So while the wash is still wet, I'm going to spray at the top part. Maybe a bit more. Granulation doesn't look very obvious. For areas that I have sprayed, it looks like they dried up much faster. So these areas are the areas that the spray did not reach. They are still wet. Let's do the same thing on the Daler Rowney paper. There is more texture on this paper. Alright, while the wash is still wet, I'm going to spray again. There is not a lot happening. This is starting to dry up, so let me try and spray this again and see if anything would happen. Or maybe I sprayed too much. Nope, nothing's happening. Or maybe the paint is starting to dry up. Maybe that's why it's not working. Back on the Canson paper, I'm starting to see white areas appearing. Yellow is not an easy color to see in granulation, so let's use another color. This time we will use Quinacridone Red. This is a very strong color. I've used a bit more water this time around, so while the wash is still wet, let's quickly spray something on it. I probably sprayed a bit too much. And this area, it's drying up much faster compared to the other areas. And also as the area dries up, you can see that the color is lighter, less intense compared to other areas. Let's do that again, this time on Daler Rowney paper. I'm going to spray from a further distance so that the spray can cover a larger area. So this is how it looks. This is Quinacridone Red. Back on the Canson paper, this time I'm using Phthalo Blue. And this time I'm going to spray from afar as well, so let's see what happens. Wow. The granulation here is more obvious compared to this. You can see the splotches, they are larger, and this is quite an interesting texture. I would not expect something like this from Phthalo Blue, but this is actually quite beautiful. Let's do it again, this time on Daler Rowney paper, the paper that has more texture. Spraying from afar. This looks very similar to the one on the Canson paper. This is very beautiful. I can see different shades of blue. Back on the smoother Canson paper now. Now I'm using French Ultramarine, which is a granulating paint On this smooth paper, the granulation is not that obvious. This time I'm going to squeeze a bit, just a tiny bit. Areas that got hit by the spray dried up almost instantly, so leaving the paper white. This time on Daler Roundy paper. I'm not sure if you can see it, but because the paper is more textured, we can see more granulation. There's definitely more texture here with French Ultramarine compared to that on the Canson paper. Let me quickly show you the difference before I use the spray. So this is the Canson paper, this is the Daler Roundy paper. Even without the spray, the texture, the granulation pattern is very obvious compared to the Canson paper. And now let's spray. I'm going to spray a bit as well, not too much. I'm going to control my spray just to create little dots, little bigger dots. Oops, too much. It definitely takes some practice. Let me spray again. So the more you spray, the more the paper white is going to show, because the spray actually dries up the water with the watercolor paint. Oops, too much again. For the next color, we will go with Sap Green. This is also a granulating color. On the Canson paper, you can see the granulation. If there is any, it's really fine. So let's spray again, this time from afar with a huge spray. This is very nice texture. Let's spray again. This area here, this has almost dried up. Let's see what would happen if I spray again. Nope, nothing happens. The spray works best when the wash is still wet. So earlier on I tried spraying this area. When it was drying up, nothing happened. Here's Sap Green again on the Daler Roundy paper. Again, can you see the texture? It's more obvious here, especially these areas. You can see the brush strokes very clearly. Alright, let's spray this from afar. We see some nice textures going on. Really beautiful. The last color on the Canson paper, this is Italian Burnt Sienna. Let's spray this from afar. This is quite beautiful as well. Burnt Sienna on the textured paper. And now the spray. Now that the colors have dried, let's compare. Alright, first thing that comes to my mind is the spray definitely works well with certain colors. So with yellow, it's not that obvious. With Quinacridone Red, it's also not that obvious. In fact, I went ahead to create another swatch to see if there's any difference, and there isn't a lot of difference. So the spraying effect, it's there, but it's not as obvious compared to Phthalo Blue. This is really beautiful. You can really see the texture. Without the spray, I won't be able to create a texture like this, and I also don't know how to create a texture like this. This is Canson paper, this is Daler Roundy paper. Because of the paper texture, whatever color you paint on the paper, on the Daler Roundy, it already looks more textured. The cold press watercolor paper texture on the Daler Roundy paper is definitely more obvious, and whatever you paint on the paper, you can already see some sort of texture. With the additional spray, it looks even more textured. So this is French Ultramarine. This is, I think you can see the texture more clearly here. This is Sap Green on Canson. This is Sap Green on Daler Roundy. Without telling you which paper is which, you can probably make an accurate guess. This is the Canson, smoother paper. Daler Roundy, more textured. And this is how the granulation looks like. The effect of the granulation is quite similar regardless of the paper you used. So this is Burnt Sienna. This is Phthalo Blue. They look quite similar to me. I'm quite interested to see how the spray would look with a sketch, so I'm going to color this quick sketch very quickly. So this is burnt sienna, and for some areas I'm going to add French Ultramarine, get some variation. Now this paper, this Canson paper, it dulls down the colors slightly. And maybe for the ground in front, I'm going to use raw sienna. You have to work very quickly if you are using the spray, so let's try this on the building and the ground. I'm going to spray from afar. Alright, this is a bit too much. Also, when the wash is very wet, when you spray it, areas will dry up, but if the wash is still wet, the water will run back into the area. As you can probably see just now, this area was really wet. Oops. Let's see what happens when we spray this area. Okay, right, and here. Oops, a bit too much. For the sky, I'm going to use Phthalo Blue. I'm going to try and create a gradated wash where the blue fits into the white of the paper. So I need to work really fast. Let's spray this. I think for some areas I want it to be a bit darker. Oh, this is quite interesting. So when the spray is still on the paper, you can see that the water doesn't get absorbed easily because the spray, the liquid of that spray, it's still there. The trees here are not dark enough, so let me just make it a bit darker. You can see the paper is starting to warp quite badly. I've painted some sap green over the foreground area. And let me spray some again. This sketch was painted under 15 minutes. I just want to see how the spray will look with a sketch. So the sky, it's really nice. I love the textures. With this building here, this was mixed with French Ultramarine and burnt sienna, which are actually both granulating colors, so you can already see some textures on it. I sprayed some spray on it. I can see some splotches here and there, but I didn't spray too much. You can see some splotches here. Interesting effect. And on the ground here, this is raw sienna, this is sap green. So while the wash was still wet, I sprayed some. And this is a very nice texture. Again, this is something that is quite difficult for me to recreate without the spray. So that's when the spray comes in really helpful. Some spray here as well in the trees in the background. I recommend you test this out on some quick sketches and paint first before you use it on actual artwork so that you can practice and get the result, the effect that you want. When you press the spray fully, you can get a more diffused mist and you get an effect something like this. If you spray it too close to the paper, it's going to look like this. If you half press the spray will actually come out in bigger droplets and you get effects that look like this, a bit more splotchy. The colors that you use matter, so test this with the different colors that you have. And that's all for my video today. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. If you want to check out the higher resolution scans of these swatches that I have created, you can visit the link in the video description below. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.